Those of you that listened to my last recording would remember that I said I would do some research into the subject of emancipation and common law. Unfortunately, I have not yet managed to get any experts on the subject to appear on my channel, but I am working on it. What I did manage to do was to get invited to a Zoom meeting on the subject last week. I did learn a lot from that meeting, but most importantly, it made me realize that I actually know very little on the subject. I thought I would share with you today what I learned in that Zoom meeting. First of all, we need to understand what being sovereign is. Sovereignty is vested in the people, for whom the fiction known as government exists and acts. Or that's how it's supposed to be anyway. We, the people, are supposed to be the priority shareholders of the National Trust, the unincorporated South African Republic. Unfortunately, this has been hijacked or taken over by corporations who have converted our national public trusts into private corporations, and they are being run for profit. The bar legal system, or judicial system as we know it, is based on admiralty or maritime law, or commonly known as the law of the sea. As such, it has jurisdiction over commerce and contracts between corporations. It has no jurisdiction over real living people, their rights and freedoms, their possessions, their offspring, as well as their physical land. It has no jurisdiction over these. That is the jurisdiction of common law, or the law of the land. We have not had a common law system since the last republic was forcefully shut down. Common law has never gone away. It never will. It has merely been ignored and replaced by the bar law system as we know it, but it is no less applicable today as it was back then. So what is common law exactly? Common law is the moral sentiment of a local community. That's it. The community or a nation is a grouping of people who have a communal life where they have a certain way of doing things, they have their own set of morals, ethics, and principles to which they all hold each other accountable. As a sovereign people, you have the right to live in a community whose common morals, ethics, and way of life coincide with your own. The bar legal system, that is our current legal system, has encroached on the jurisdiction of common law or the law of the land. As such, they only recognize your legal personage or the legal representation of you as a person. The courts do not recognize you as a real living being. On birth, you are supposed to be registered as an estate, but in the current system, you are immediately registered as a deceased estate. Thereafter, very deceitfully, because you did not lay claim to your deceased estate within a specified number of years, the state laid claim to it. The estates are now being used as collateral by private corporations. If you appear in a court now, the court only recognizes your person or the legal representation of you, not you as a living, breathing man or woman, because they simply do not have the jurisdiction to make any decisions over you as a living, breathing man or woman. They do this with what is termed semantic deceit and legalese. Legalese is a language that sounds very much like English to you and I, but it is nothing like English. In legalese, more often than not, the meaning of a statement in legalese means the opposite of what you think it means. These differing meanings of specific words can be found in law dictionaries. If you would like to know the meanings of specific words, you are advised to find a copy of the Black's Law Dictionary, version 4. This version has both the meaning of common law words as well as their bar meanings. All versions after the fourth have ever-increasing variations in meaning of certain words to suit the bar legal system. The effect this has had is to encroach more and more on common law jurisdiction over time. It is for this reason that the emancipation documents might seem to be worded very strangely to the layperson, but if you use the Black's Law 4th edition dictionary to look up the meaning of certain words used in the documents, you will understand why these documents were worded the way they are. In essence, what the emancipation process is laying claim to all your property that is registered in your name. This would include your biological offspring, vehicles, houses, land, etc., including your own name. You are at the same time notifying key agents within RSA Incorporated that it is your own property, they are merely administrators thereof. You are also not liable for any debts that they might be accruing. As we all know, South Africa is on the verge of financial collapse and has huge debts. The possibility is there that in the event of bankruptcy, any and all property can be claimed to repay the debt of the government, as has happened in countries such as Greece. As things stand, all government departments are in fact for-profit corporations and are making a fortune from us. The whole aim of these corporations is to turn a profit for their private shareholders instead of being a non-profit trust there to make things easier for us. You will see the name of the country is written as the Republic of South Africa, all in capital letters. When they use the word of, as in the Republic of, this means that it is what is called a legal fiction, a corporation. What it should be called is the South African Republic. This would refer to an unincorporated entity, to the land itself, and not a fictional entity created in name only as a business or a corporation. Also, if you go and look at the word president, in the legal dictionary, the 4th edition of Black's Law, it means the head or the CEO of a corporation. Under common law, we would not have a president, we would have governors. So there are two separate jurisdictions. The C jurisdiction that handles commerce between legal fictions or all things incorporated. Then there is the land jurisdiction that deals with all things unincorporated, as in unincorporated trusts. That being all living, breathing people, their possessions as well as their offspring and their land. Under common law, there are no oaths. There are only affirmations. In other words, your yes is your yes and your no is your no. Under common law, nothing is registered, it is recorded. Currently, due to the encroachment of the common law system by the bar law system, the amount of what is termed as paper fraud that is taking place under our noses is astronomical and is literally bankrupting the country. By the way, as a matter of interest, you might not know this, but South Africa has already gone through 17 total bankruptcies. The first occurred in 1910 when the Union of South Africa was fraudulently declared. As another matter of interest, there is no statute of limitations on fraud. So what does it mean to be an emancipated person living in South Africa? You will still be interacting with the Republic of South Africa as you are at the moment. The difference would come in if you were to be taken to court for a new case, in other words, a case that has come about after the date on which you emancipated yourself. In the case of anything to do with your rights, with your property, with your possessions or your children, that would fall under the jurisdiction of the common law court, which would then become the court of first instance, not the current courts. This is much the same as what applies to tribal authorities today. If a dispute arises on tribal land, the tribal authorities are the courts of first instance. This is recognized internationally. As a sovereign community that naturally comprises of emancipated peoples, their common law courts are superior even to the Constitutional Court of South Africa. The state has effectively gone rogue in that they have taken over our assets, that is, the land and all government institutions, and treating them as if these entities were their own property, when in fact the opposite is the case. The Constitution of the Constitutional Court is nothing other than a charter that explains how the government agents should behave on our land while providing us with services. They are nothing more than civil servants, answerable to us while administering our assets and accounts. When it comes to your ID book, your ID is not proof of citizenship at all unless you consent to it being so. It is in fact the same as a bank account, which is there to facilitate transactions in maritime law, nothing else. Because you are transacting under maritime law does not mean that you have given up your natural rights. If you at any time feel that your natural rights are being infringed upon, you are entitled to make the declaration as such. If there is any dispute, you can declare your venue for a hearing in a court which has the jurisdiction over such matters. This would be your own common law court. This is even catered for in the current Bill of Rights, where it clearly states that anyone is entitled to a fair trial in another alternative forum or tribunal. Any common law court set up by a sovereign people is just that. Section 39.2 of the Bill of Rights even states that it does not deny the existence of customary law or common law or other jurisdiction. The Bill of Rights does not apply to you as a living, breathing person. It applies to you as a legal fiction. The Bill of Rights is supposed to stand unincorporated on the land jurisdiction outside of the Constitution. There is no such thing as South Africa being a sovereign state, as it is called in the Constitution. Sovereignty is vested in the people, not the land. What it should say is that South Africa is a republic of sovereign people. The land cannot be sovereign. Only a living being can be sovereign. These are just some of the technicalities, but as you have already heard, there is nothing in the bar legal system or the Constitution that denies the existence of common law as a superior law. In fact, there is more evidence that endorses it as such. When it comes to things like passports, driver's licenses, and vehicle licenses, these are slightly more complicated. But there are certain individuals who are already driving their vehicles with their own registration plates on them, which is perfectly legal, strictly speaking. Although I am sure that at this stage, if you are caught with a vehicle that is not registered in the eyes of the traffic department, you will be issued a fine and would have to argue your case in court. And there is no legal basis for you not to win your case. But remember, common law has jurisdiction over you as a living, breathing person and not over anything to do with commerce. So if you are operating a vehicle commercially, the bar legal system has jurisdiction over that. Now, as I have already said, if you are a sovereign people, all your possessions, land, and offspring are sovereign too, and the government has absolutely no jurisdiction over them or you. So how does this pertain to the subject of expropriation without compensation, you might ask yourself? Well, in a nutshell, if the ground in question legally belongs to a sovereign people, the government has absolutely no jurisdiction over it and cannot legally take possession of your land. If the judge cannot prove to you, when requested to do so, how the court has any jurisdiction over you as a sovereign people and your land, you are legally entitled to issue a cease and desist. This is legally speaking, of course, but we all know that the ANC government does not pay any attention to the law, any law, not even their own law, so we can expect this to be dismissed too, in all probability. In that case, by law, strictly speaking, we have every right under common law, which is the superior law, to defend our property in any way possible. This also applies to firearms as they are our possessions. Obviously, you have to have declared yourself to be a sovereign people already when this takes place, not afterwards. One interesting fact to know is that the Constitutional Court, as it stands right now, does not even have a registrar of the court. A registrar is, according to the rules and regulations governing the operations of the Constitutional Court, an absolute necessity. The Constitutional Court cannot legally operate without a registrar. We have not had a registrar in the Constitutional Court for around 5 years now. We have a clerk of the court basically running the Constitutional Court right now. In theory, every judgment passed down by the Constitutional Court since the registrar resigned has been an illegitimate judgment. And as we have learned lately from various sources, many of these judgments are being passed down without a judge ever seeing the documentation of the cases. This does not necessarily pertain to the subject of this discussion, but it is certainly worth taking into account. Okay, this has been a lot of technical information, so I will stop there and tell you what I think the pros and cons of this process are, as well as whether or not I think this process is worth pursuing. I guess what I have to say here differs depending on what sector of the population you refer to. So let me first talk about the average person living in the suburbs somewhere, or even a farmer on his land somewhere, isolated from other people. For those individuals spread out all over the country, as individuals hoping to somehow claim back the old republics, I think they are facing a bigger uphill battle than they anticipate. With the population density what it is today, it would be impossible to just claim a large portion of the land mass, as legal as it might seem in common law. I can't say for sure, but emancipation might offer some people some protection against having their property expropriated when this policy is implemented, but even that is a lot to hope for. We all know that the ANC government is a law unto themselves and they will do exactly what they want. We have also heard that they want the courts to have no say in the matter until the landowners oppose the process after the land has been expropriated. It doesn't do any harm being on the right side of the law though, even if the authorities refuse to acknowledge or abide by the law. Where I really do see the benefit of this emancipation process is for the communities who have already purchased their own land and are populating that land with like-minded people wishing for independence. Just off the top of my head, I can think of the folks at Yusuf who have the farm Delbarton, the folks out at Garries, Groendorp, Eureka, Orania, and many more. These folks have communities living on private land and could make good use of the policy of emancipation to claim their independence, their right to defend themselves, their right to bear arms, their right to manufacture arms, etc. All of these communities could emancipate themselves, form a number of unions, just as there were many unions in South Africa until 1910, when we were illegally forced to form what is now known as the Republic of South Africa. and then they could give each other recognition. Once again, I can't see the ANC government bowing to this superior law, even if they know and recognize that they are in the wrong. But there is strength in numbers, and it does help when you know that you are in the right. I honestly believe that all secession movements would benefit from the emancipation process, specifically if they already own the land on which they live as a community. I think this would even negate the need for the secession process, but I could be wrong there. Naturally, we are talking strictly according to the law here, and we all know that there is no law in South Africa. This subject is incredibly interesting, and I have barely scratched the surface here. As I said in my previous recording on the subject, I'm no expert on emancipation or common law, and am only just starting to learn about it right now. I do think it has merit and deserves further investigation. I'm getting the idea that we have really been bullied and bamboozled into believing that we were free, that what we own is ours, and even that our children are our own. Our so-called rights have been so twisted and bastardized that what we think are human rights today are nothing but a set of rules and laws to enslave us. I'm still trying to get an expert on the subject on the channel for an interview, and will let you know when I have something in place. Please like and share this video on as many social media platforms as possible. It is the only way that my message gets out there. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, do it now. What have you got to lose? If you would like to make a contribution to my channel, in the description field I have made provision for local as well as international listeners to make a contribution. If you would like to make a crypto contribution, also in the description field I have supplied a Bitcoin as well as an Ethereum wallet address. If you would like to contribute any other crypto, simply shoot me an email to the address also in the description field, and I will send you the relevant wallet address. For those comfortable using Zapper, simply pause the video and scan the QR code. Any and all contributions will be very much appreciated. To all the amazing people that do contribute to my channel, I say a huge thank you. You have no idea how much it is appreciated. Be safe out there. Until next time.